Sam Harris and Alex O'Connor recently had a discussion about morality, and in my opinion, Sam Harris just did a horrendous job representing his understanding of the subject. My problem with Sam has always been that he is someone who describes his arguments rather than actually putting them out in detail. It just drives me up the wall. It's, if you're someone who is not capable of forming a syllogism, maybe philosophy just isn't the subject for you.
Um, so what do you make of the fact that these experiences exist, right? And they're radically different, um, and that there are right and wrong answers with respect to how to get from one to the other. It's not you don't randomly get just hurled toward one or the other.
Sure.
It's you're there are at every level that we can understand ourselves scientifically, from the genome on up.
Sam, let me help you explain what you are butchering. There are essentially two types of ways that we use obligatory language such as should, ought, and must. One, to arrive at rational conclusions that aren't morally obligatory. For example, I'm hungry and I can make a sandwich, therefore I should probably make a sandwich. Or two, to describe objective moral obligations, which is to say that given certain circumstances in which we have capacity to influence the well being of others, we have a moral obligation to act in the best interest of everyone affected. You, Sam, are describing option one, aka rationally subjective conclusions, because you are talking about whether or not certain actions tend to result in outcomes that are undesirable for you. You're describing a logical calculation of cost to benefit when you know certain outcomes will likely not positively impact your life. You are not describing whether or not you have some sort of universal, external, or objective moral obligation to fulfill a responsibility to yourself and others under those circumstances. This is not to say that morals cannot have a logical component, which is when we're calculating whether or not certain behavioral outcomes are likely superior to others. What I mean is that saying that you can calculate whether or not an action is in your best interest is much different than saying, I have an objective moral obligation to perform this action under these circumstances because of how it impacts everyone. And by the way, aren't we supposed to stop taking this kind of Ayn Rand moral philosophy seriously after high school?
We're in kind of in the descriptive values, still value laden landscape of this feels much better
hmm
than this over here, which I never want to taste or
Yep.
touch again, right? Uh,
Crucially, just for clarity, I would say, in my view here, this is subjective value. These are
well,
these are
it's
subjectively
subjective, but these
valued.
are objective facts about conscious systems.
Objective facts about how to best achieve what one subjectively values.
Yes, Alex, you actually get it. You have correctly described what Sam Harris refuses to accept.
There are certain things that only exist as uh, appearances in consciousness, right? That is their ontological status,
Uh-huh.
right? There's no even if we could later correlate them with other states of the physics of things, um, it's just you can't conceptually reduce them. You can't be there's no the there is as conscious experiences,
hmm
right? And I would say consciousness itself is one of those things. It's just
Mm.
that the only evidence for consciousness in this universe is as consciousness, right? It's like there's no
Sure.
evidence in a brain that consciousness is a thing, right?
Wow, that was a really painful description of how Sam derives morality. I wonder why it was so difficult for him to describe. Let me explain. Sam has derived objective morality from human consciousness, which he admits there is no evidence for. He is essentially saying that objective morality was birthed as a result of our randomly evolved, ultimately purposeless DNA through the creation of consciousness, which morality is tied to. I didn't realize Sam had become so spiritual. Sam also doesn't believe in free will, by the way, so that causes other impassable problems for his perspective on objective morality. Namely, that if we can't control our actions, then we can't control when we violate moral laws. And therefore, we cannot be described as moral agents any more than an ant can.
I mean, the character of experience will change and will change by virtue of whatever laws of nature underwrite the character of conscious experience, right? And
That's right.
again, we can understand those laws at every level that we attempt to understand anything, from genetics on up.
And here Sam Harris has arrived at both the is-ought and naturalistic fallacies. Look up the definitions if you don't believe me. You cannot derive moral obligations by simply describing how things are or have been, nor can you derive moral obligations by simply describing how things occur naturally. Sorry guys, I'm with the theologians on this one. Stop deluding yourself.